My full name is Nolan Self. I was born the first day of September, 1918. My dad was Brack Self. That's all I ever knew Dad as, Brack. My mama was named Joanna. We were raised to work. My daddy was a farmer in Leesburg. And he believed in working, and he was a hard worker. Wherever Dad was, that's where I was. In fact, he always called me sweet boy in the Nina. Now, what that means, I don't know. But I was crazy about my daddy, and he was crazy about his baby boy. He was a real man. When he was a young man, he drank that whiskey and ride his horse and go through the town and shoot the town up. My family had 5 boys and 6 girls, 11 of us. Well, Mom had to do most of the raising, and she made us go while I was going. But see, we were so poor because Dad left us early. I remember coming home one day, and I came in through the back door, and Mama was, it touches me. I came in through the back door, Mama was out on the front porch in the swing. She heard me, and she said, "Nolan, there's some biscuits in the oven." I picked the last of the collard greens, and they are sitting on the stove, but I didn't have no fat to put in them, Nolan, so I cooked them with lard. That tore me up. I quit school, and she didn't have to tell me to quit. I quit. Roosevelt had started the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps. The CCC was a forerunner of the United States Army. Roosevelt was a far-seeing man. He knew that Hitler was raising sand at that time, and we were going to have to tangle with him. And so he started the CCC. There was no bridges, no roads, no trees. The soil was eroded. Roosevelt fixed all that. He told us that he wanted every man to work because there was no work. Everybody was a hobo. Trains was running but full of men going from state to state. Roosevelt said, "I'm going to stop this. I'm going to start the CCC and put everybody to work." But he told you when he hired you, he said, "I'm going to pay you $1 a day, and a month to me only has 30 days. You get $30 at the end of the month. But you can only keep 5 of them dollars. The 25 is going home to Mom and Dad. I'm going to see to that." We were glad to do that. At the same time, Roosevelt was building barracks and camps because he knew we were going to need them later on. I stayed in the CCC for 2 terms. So I stayed the 2 years that I was allotted, and I had to go back home to Pine Bluffs, Arkansas. They sent me back home, and my mama and my 2 sisters, they were the only ones there, needed me, and I could see what condition they were living in. I went back down to the CCC headquarters and begged the lady to let me go back for 1 more term. I overpowered her. She let me go back in for another 2 years for the sake of my sisters and my mama. She agreed with me because I begged her on my knees almost. When I came out of the CCC, it was 1940. So I was old enough then to fight, to be a soldier. Well, I never thought about the United States Army. I hadn't even thought of that, really. But the Buffalo Soldiers, they got a tremendous history. My mother had a letter, and she said, "Nolan, you have a letter from the president." When I opened the letter, he told me, he said, "I want you, Nolan Self, to be one of my soldiers." He greeted me, of course, the letter did. But he told me, I want you to take a physical. And he told me where I'd have to go to get the physical. And if you pass the physical, I want you to report to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and become a member of the 10th Cavalry and be one of my soldiers. And when I told my mama, she started crying and said, oh, Nolan, they can't, well, what you mean going to the Army? I said, Mama, don't cry. I said, it's a good thing for you and the girls. I said, Mama, you're going to get a check if I pass the physical. She don't understand that. I'm going to take my baby boy? No. Now, a lot of the guys were taking balls of soap and making a pill out of it and swallowing it and drinking a lot of water to make the blood pressure go up. They don't want to go into the Army. I told them, I said, I don't want nothing to do with that. I want to pass this physical. I passed, and then Roosevelt got the word that I had passed. He not only took me, he took 400 blacks out of Pine Bluff, Arkansas on the Missouri Pacific train and took us all the way to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I'd never been away from home in my life. Pine Bluff was a pretty good place to live. We never had any troubles there, never. And so I went into the Army at Fort Leavenworth. Fort Leavenworth, ain't nobody gonna act up there if you got good sense. The officers were kind. They were handpicked. You just you don't become not an officer in the 10th Cavalry or the 9th Cavalry. I had a good time when I was in the service. The best thing I can remember is to eat like I wanted to. I was a youngster then, what they call a private, buck private. But the Army was a salvation to me and my family. I was glad to be a soldier. I loved horses. In the Army, I had 2 horses, in fact, in the service. And when you're in a horse cavalry, they assign you 2 horses. You have a spare, because, one might break a leg or he might get sick or anything could happen. Because they have sick calls every morning at 10 o'clock. It's just like they did for us soldiers. I had a horse named Funston. Had a beautiful build. He was wide. And that's the kind of horse I need, because at that time I'm learning. I don't know a whole lot about him. And he was a good horse to ride, because he was one when they say gallop, all you got to do is sit in the saddle, because he's going to give you that ride, Anyway, but he ran away with me though one day. We were out riding for pleasure, or learn how to, there's different things you need to know when you're riding a horse, how to properly handle him. And they teach you, if he gets spooked, which he will get a lot of time, and he's going to start running then, they said, never jump from that horse, but take up your reins and cut him in a circle, because he can't stand that cut on his mouth. Well, he got to running, he got spooked and took off. And I was riding along the Kansas River. We were riding that morning, a whole bunch of us. And the sergeant in charge, he way up in front. He didn't know the horse had done broke out of the ranks and started running away with me. And he headed right for the river. And I can't swim. They teach you never jump from a horse when he gets spooked and starts, running. Because if your foot should happen to get caught in that stirrup, he'd drag you to death. He was going with me. And I said, well, Lord, I can't swim. And you had your people to say, don't jump. But I'm jumping. To this day, if I had it all to do over, instead of buying a home, I'd buy me a farm where I could have me a horse at least, because I love to ride. And at 96, people tell me you can't ride anymore, but I believe I can.
You can, there you go.
I met Joe Louis, he went running with him. But not just me. Every black that was in the unit it could ran with him in one morning. Joe Louis built the conditioning camp at Fort Riley because the government moved the 10th Cavalry to Fort Riley, Kansas, where the 9th Cavalry was at already, so the two units could train together, both black units. So it was a joy to run with Joe. Joe didn't do no work naturally, just being Joe Louis. He was a fine man, though. And he was a gentleman, a perfect gentleman. In fact, he was living in Junction City, he and Marva, and he knew that the soldiers didn't have nothing for them to do. So what he did was he contacted Count Basie to come here with his big, pretty, good band, and I'm going to be responsible for all the young ladies so the soldiers will have someone to dance with. And I'll have Basie to play the music, and he could do that. Somebody got the young ladies together. Joe paid for the bill. He paid for the buses. And all the girls, Joe brought them in by the busloads. Well, Wilma came to this dance that Joe sponsored in Topeka, Kansas. But a friend of hers, I had met her, and I thought I was going to be with her. But she had another fella she was going to be with. And Wilma said she asked her if she would entertain me.
Well, I thought he was just about the cutest kid I'd ever seen. He was so handsome, and he seemed so great manners. My mother just thought that was the best thing that ever happened to have a kid, because he was from the South. It was a little bit different than the northern boys were.
And I found out when we got on the dance floor, she knew what to do. And Joe Louis even played the drums that night. Well, you know Joe can't play no drums, but that's Joe Louis. The girls just went crazy over Joe Louis. Anyway, but me and Wilma, we hit the dance floor, and I found out that she was all right. And so we began to talk and hold hands, and we even sat outside on the front steps and talked a long time. I knew right then, I said, that's the girl that I want. I had to go back to camp the next day, and they had to go home naturally that night.
Not long after that, he was transferred and sent to Mississippi. And I thought, well, that's the end of that. But then we started writing, and, things progressed.
I remember Normandy. You'll never forget that. Eisenhower was walking with a big old bullhorn, greeting the soldiers and telling us what a fine thing we were doing for our country, and a whole lot of other things he was telling us. And I remember these words. To me, they were very touching, and I know they must have been touching to others also. He said, you guys are doing a great thing. This is your country, which is true. You're doing this for your country. But I want you to know that some of you are going to go in, and then some of you won't come back. When they loaded us up on an LST to go into the shore, there was so many young men floating at that time. We ain't got the shore yet. Rifles are floating. Packs were floating. They were dead already. Couldn't swim. I couldn't swim. And a lot of others, I imagine, was in the shape I was in, because we didn't have time to be talking then. But God Almighty had something in store for me. I don't know how I got ashore, but I got ashore.
I worried about him. I remember D-Day. I was in Toledo with his family, and I'd gone out there to visit them. as I rode back on the bus, I dropped off to sleep. And just as I'm talking to you, I heard his voice calling my name. I woke up, of course, kind of frightened me. When I got home, the radio said it was D-Day had started. And I just was terrified because I knew he was in Europe. And I didn't know what was, you didn't get letters that often. And of course they were all censored so that there wasn't anything in them about really what was going on. But yes, that was the worst time for me.
I went in everybody does, you go as a buck private. But I knew my background. I knew I wasn't a smart boy. I knew I was a poor boy. I knew I was a black boy. But I thought things would be different when I came back, because I fought in 5 campaigns. I fought in the Ardennes, and I fought in Central Europe. I also went over into southern Wales. I didn't have to fight, but I went over there to fight. I came out naturally when the war was over, and I had some good things happen to me. I was able somehow to become a first sergeant. Now, the first sergeant is the highest rank, a black or white, who is an enlisted man, could reach in that day. I served for over 20 years. And when I got out, I didn't know what I was going to do, because they don't need no first sergeants out here. They need them in the Army, Navy, Marines. And I told my wife, I said, honey, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got this big family, and I ain't no first sergeant anymore. There was very little work you could do. Nobody to hire you, wanted to hire you rather, as a rule. I was lucky enough to get a job in my city on the tail end of the garbage truck. So I told my wife, I said, honey, I'm working, I got a job. But I don't want to work on the back end of the garbage truck. I'm gonna quit it. That girl told me, don't quit it. The Lord has something for you. That's the word she used. I continued to work, but I sure didn't like it. I wanted to quit. She said, well, what would you do, honey? You got a big family. Family was growing. She said, I don't know. But, excuse me. She said, the Lord has something for you, Nolan. So I took the job. And I worked for about 2 months on the back end of the truck, picking up people's garbage and emptying it. One day I went to work, as usual, and all the trucks have radios in them so that headquarters can talk to truck drivers. The radio came on and said, have Nolan Self report to the Daily Union newspaper office. And the driver looked at me and said, Nolan, what have you done? I said, I ain't done nothing. What they want me for? And I walked in to see the manager and said, Nolan, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. We just hit me on the shoulder. Said, we had you come up here, Nolan, because we have decided that you are the new superintendent. of the sanitation department for this city. I almost fainted, but I was so thankful. And I took the job, and I held the job for 17 straight years until I went to California with my wife.
First of all, when I took my vows, till death do I die, till we die, I meant that because our vows were to God. So we just worked things out one way or the other, and it's been a wonderful marriage. I had some beautiful kids that have been wonderful. They truly, truly worry about their mother. Used to pray that I would have a girl, but God knows best. And I'm so thankful that I had the boys, because they're very close to me. And my husband was so good at being a first sergeant that it all boiled down to the family. All he had to do was look at him. Then they really snapped into, I don't say they didn't give us a lot of trouble. We spent a lot of sleepless nights. Got a lot of memories and a lot of experiences. And that's only happened because I married Nolan. And he was understanding enough to allow me to express myself.
The Lord's been good to me. The Lord's been good to me. I have to go to church on Sunday because I owe this to my God.
Know the Lord, and then let Him run things for you. Everyone's going to have some kind of a problem. And you can't do it by yourself.
I think every man should go to war. It will discipline them, and they need that discipline.
War is inevitable. We know that. And I really believe, from just the experiences with my children, that every young man and young woman spend 2 years in service. It's good training. It's a good mixture of different cultures, because they had to work as teams if they're in the service. They have to be concerned about their fellow soldier.
Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Learn to work hard. You've got to know how to work. You can't get through this life taking it for granted that you're supposed to have it soft and easy. I don't care what kind of work it is, but good, honorable work, and to be honest and trust God to do the rest.
I worked hard. But I was the type of guy, I'd do any kind of work that man gonna pay me some money. If it don't get but $1, that's $1 I didn't have, and I'd do the job. But whatever your hand finds to do it with your heart.